um, really the Lord's dealt in his heart and called him to the world, a field of missions. And of course, he's finished his theological education, did his residency here, and recently was on a trip to really seek the Lord's direction. I wanted Brother Michael to share a word of testimony with us today about how the Lord is directing his life. So you know, we've been involved as a congregation with his life and what God is calling him to do, and then just to let you know what God is doing. So Brother Hinson, would you come on and share a testimony?
Okay. Well, first I'd like to say thank you. Of course, getting to talk to you today is always a privilege. But also a couple of weeks ago, you all voted with Missions Committee to give toward my going overseas, and it was very generous. I'd like to say thank you for that, first of all. Well, I went then to Turkey and the Republic of Georgia. And up there is a map, and the highlighted country is Georgia. Even since I've been back, a lot of people probably being funny, talk about the Georgia right across State Line Road, but there's the one where I was. And I was in Turkey first, then in Republic of Georgia, as his full title is. And some of you might know, in 2009, I was also in Central Asia, which on the map is further east across the Caspian Sea. What the Lord has been burdening me back when I first went to college, I didn't know much about the world, I didn't know much about geography, honestly, or about different religions and people group, but I began learning about different parts of the world where there is, relatively, numerically speaking, a little church, or hardly any church at all. And the Lord began just burden me for places like that, for people like that, where there's not a church within their culture that is working to propagate itself or to reproduce itself, to reach its own people. And thus that sort of grow into looking at the Islamic world, which is about roughly 1 billion people profess to be Islamic, at least in name. And the Lord just grew that burden on my heart. And when I went to Central Asia, it's like a nominally Muslim area of the world. I was there, prayed about it. I didn't really have anything against it, but there just was not a reassurance from the Lord that this is what He had for me. And before I made this trip, I began praying about just looking at the Islamic world. You got the Middle East, you got North Africa, even into India, and on the other side of India, some countries there. And just praying about the geography about it. And I would begin realizing that there's a lot of countries on the fringes toward Western Europe where there's a lot of immigrant population has moved out of the Middle East into these countries. And, a lot of Middle Eastern countries, North Africa, it's very difficult to get a visa. It's very dangerous to, not that I want to limit God by physical circumstances, but I was just praying about it and thinking about how it's best to do. So I went visit these countries, see what the Lord showed me and what He taught me. Roughly, I was in Turkey. Turkey is nominal Muslim. It's very 99% people profess Islamic, but it's pretty nominal. There are some more serious ones. I was there, I met some Iranians, very glad to meet some Iranians, got to talk to them about what is happening in Iran, a very strict Islamic state, and the churches there. Talked to some Georgians, I met some people that smuggle Bibles into Islamic countries, things that we look at and we're like, wow, that's like impossible, but there's people there that were doing it, and I was privileged to meet them. Then when I went to Georgia, I met some national pastors there. There's not any American missionaries that I know of or that the people I was meeting knew of. And when I was there, I found out you got the Georgian people themselves, which are European. They are Orthodox Christians. And when I first got there, I was kind of shocked because it reminded me of the Reformation, things you read about then. Some of the things I saw was Orthodox preach was selling blessings outside the Orthodox church door, and I saw people buy candles from the priest and go burn them to their favorite saint that's supposed to help with whatever his specialty or her specialty was, or get little prayer cloths from the priest and go hang them on the prayer trees. It's just very sad to see that and to think about, well, these people are called Christians, the Georgian people, and yet it's just so dead. But besides the Georgian people are Orthodox in Georgia along the south, if you look on the map, especially down by the southern end of it and more toward the Black Sea, which is on the left up there. There is immigrant Muslim population that have moved in. Much of it, though, is from hundreds of years ago, not any time recent, but yet they're still Islamic practicing. And just as I was there and I saw these people, saw these places, and what the Lord had been doing in my heart for the past couple years, He just gave me the reassurance that yes, this is the place that He would have me. And I'm praying a lot about that. And if you look on the map, you'll see that, where Georgia's located in Russia holds about 20% of what you see as Georgia at the north militarily. So you see there's Turkey to the south, there's Azerbaijan, which is Islamic, to the east. I get it backward when it's on the other side of the world often. And not far away there's Iran. And if the Lord blesses it, if the Lord does something there with those people, it could grow. And right nearby there's these people that can be touched if the Lord blesses it. And that is the prayer of my heart. Maybe He can use me in some way for those people. Because in Georgia, I mentioned there's a few churches. Numerically speaking, there's very little Christian work in Georgia, which is surprising to me because it's a wide open country. You can go there. You don't even have to have an excuse to go there. You can just say, I want to be here, and you can get a visa. But with those people, and you would not neglect the Orthodox people, the Islamic people, the Lord could do great things there. And if He could use me in maybe even a small way, that would be just a great joy. So just pray about that for me, please. And I thank you for those of you who have been praying. A couple things immediately. I'm starting to study language. When I was in Central Asia, I ran into Russian. And I was like, I really don't want to learn Russian, but it's sort of like coming around because they speak Russian here too. So that's what I'm going to start doing immediately, but pray about going back. There's a couple things that have to be worked out and praying about. But thank you for praying, and thank you for just helping me and supporting me, not only just with the money, but with everything you do. Thank you.
Amen. Praise the Lord.